When you start to suspect that your child might be having a learning challenge, it can feel really overwhelming. What do you do first? Where do you go? Who do you talk to? Who can actually help? Sometimes your child's teacher or school may suggest something called a psychoeducational evaluation. And naturally, so many questions come up. What is that? How does it work? Why is it even being recommended? Is it worth it? Is it going to just result in my child being labeled? I've been hearing all sides lately from a parent, for example, who has already gone through the process with her first child and now recently has been approached by her younger child's teacher recommending a psychoed evaluation. She shares, "It didn't really faze me when the school suggested an evaluation, but I think teachers need to be more empathetic in how they recommend it, especially considering the cost. Not every parent can easily carry that financial burden. And actually, my husband is in denial, and I'm having to convince him on why this is a necessary step." I assume that's true for a lot of families. That hit me because sometimes we forget how complex and even emotional these decisions can be for families. On the other hand, I also hear from the teachers' perspectives who say, "I want to help, but some parents just don't want their child to be labeled. Even when they finally agree to the assessment, they don't follow through on the recommendations." It's frustrating because we know early support can change everything for a child. And so here I am in the middle. As a speech language pathologist, I talk to both sides daily. And what I've learned is this: everyone wants what's best for the child, but we all come to it from different angles with different experiences, fears, and understanding. And that's why I invited my colleague, educational psychologist Kim Rosta, someone I trust and admire. She's a well-known name in the allied health world, and together we are going to demystify what a psychoeducational evaluation really is and why it matters, and how it can be a game changer for those students who are struggling. Whether you're a parent navigating this for the first time or a teacher trying to support your students, I hope this interview gives you the clarity, the tools, and empathy you need to move forward. I'm so glad you're here. Let's jump in.
Today's conversation is one that I really felt compelled to have, not just as a speech language pathologist, but as someone who's constantly speaking with parents and teachers who are just basically trying to support children who are struggling in school, perhaps with bad grades or maybe time for retention to be considered that they will be staying down a grade. And there's a lot of confusion or even misinformation about what a psychoeducational evaluation really is. Is it just a test? Is it only for children with learning disabilities? And when exactly should parents consider getting one? These are the questions I hear all the time, and this is something we have to talk about. So I'm thrilled to bring this conversation to my Speech on the Spectrum community. Joining me today is an educational school psychologist, Kim Rosta, who will walk us through what psychoeducational evaluations are, why they matter, and what parents and teachers need to know. So let's get right into it. Welcome, Kim.
Hello.
Let's start with the basics then. What exactly is a psychoeducational evaluation?
I know it's a question that parents often come in and they're pretty clueless as to what is going to be done with their child, right? So it is a structured, very comprehensive assessment, looking at how a child learns, how a child thinks, how a child processes information. It's really giving us a detailed picture on the child's strengths and areas that need support. We all have strengths and weaknesses, right? It doesn't matter who does a psychoeducational evaluation, you're going to have a profile of strengths and weaknesses. So it's really trying to understand how the child learns and how best we can support. So it's done through direct testing with the child, as well as we gather a lot of information from teachers and parents. We're pulling all this information together and we're really determining how we can best support the child based on their profile.
So that word support keeps coming up. So ultimately, that's the mission behind actually pursuing it, the supports. Besides the supports, and maybe go into detail of what supports look like, could you tell us the reasons a child might be referred to this type of evaluation?
Reasons vary. Many times it's because they're struggling academically, whether it's across the board or subjects, or there's a specific area, maybe they're having difficulty with reading or mathematics. Sometimes it's maybe they're having difficulty with focus, concentration, executive function. So that's things like planning, organizing, managing themselves. Many times it could also be social or emotional. So a child can be struggling to connect with their peers. That's affecting them in school. We're seeing signs of anxiety, behavioral challenges. So it really is quite broad, the spectrum of why a child might come for an evaluation. Sometimes it could just be a gut feeling, it's this seemingly intelligent child and their achievement doesn't seem to match what you know of them. And so something feels a little off.
Do you find that parents are often coming because they're considering ADHD or they're considering dyslexia? You find those are the common ones that they tend to.
Yes, many times there's question marks. Does my child meet criteria for a learning difficulty or an attention deficit? And of course, in our local system, sometimes it may be, does my child need certain supports for formal examinations, such as the SEA or the CSEC, I should say, exams. But it's so much more than that, a psychoed. It really is a roadmap of understanding your child's learning. And it's not just for that moment. This is something that moves with you and, it carries you through your whole academic journey. So many times I have parents coming in and it's, okay, they've done this eval and they take some information, they may use it in that moment, and then this report gets stuck in a drawer and it's never heard of. And it's like, no, this is going to support your child all the way through to university, tertiary education,
So circling back to that word support, that's exactly it. It's because of the supports that we want to be able to, yes, give concessions, maybe extra time for those exams, not only at the school age, primary school age, but also into adult life, even as teenagers, perhaps heading off to university. I just really appreciate you saying that this is a roadmap for you to truly understand your child or yourself, because it's not just children, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a very in-depth evaluation. Before we get into the process of the evaluation, could you perhaps shed some light for the parents? What are the good advice, little tips and tricks you can share to prepare a child and to prepare the parents themselves for this evaluation process?
Keep it simple. You're going to meet with, well, of course, in Trinidad, we say your auntie. You're going to meet an auntie. You're going to be doing different activities. And this auntie is here to figure out how you learn best, how your brain understands information so that we can find ways to help you. It's not about pass or fail, because a child will hear they're going for a test or an evaluation and they think, oh, what if I don't pass? It's not about passing or failing. It's about understanding, right? So just keep it very light and simple. I tend to use a learning style approach sometimes. Everybody learns differently. We want to figure out how you learn best and how your brain likes to learn information. Also, before coming to Nival, even on the parent side, so apart from really supporting the child in terms of before they step in for the eval, from a parent, what we look for is just be honest, open, share as much information as you can about what you're observing, because that's only going to help us really have the full picture of the child. And make sure your child has a good night's sleep, well rested, they're feeling comfortable, they had a good breakfast. So really, you just want your child to feel calm, relaxed, try not have a crazy rushed morning. We just want the child coming in feeling settled and safe and ready to work.
And on that note, then, can you walk us through what the evaluation process typically looks like from start to finish?
This conversation is going really well, but I just want to pause for a moment and ask, are you looking for even more support on this journey? I want to invite you to join my SOS Speech on the Spectrum community. It's a space where we share real tools, honest conversations, and conversations professionals don't always share. When you join, I'll also send you a free resource. It's a helpful guide called Things to Consider If Your Child is Going to Do a Psychoeducational Evaluation. So if this topic is hitting home for you, head over to www.speechonthespectrum.info or visit Donella Speaks on most social media platforms to connect. I would love to welcome you on the inside. Okay, back to the conversation.
So it's quite a lengthy process. It typically starts with a parent consult where we're gathering all the information, all the background information on the child. So there's lots of paperwork that we usually send in ahead of time. And we sit with the parents, we gather all the information, academic history, social history, medical and developmental history. There's also information that is gathering from teachers. So sometimes after direct conversation, calling the teacher is also filling out some forms, rating scales for us. At times, we would do a classroom observation as part of the assessment. That kind of depends on the referral concerns. So that's all the background gathering. And then, of course, there's the child coming in to do the direct one-on-one testing. So yes, usually it's just to drop your child off and pick them up. And, an eval can go anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of testing. This is done over multiple days. And it's usually decided depending on the child's age, their stamina. We don't want to sit and test a tired child who's kind of not able to go anymore. We want to be able to get the best from the child to really get a true sense of their skills. So that's a direct testing with the child. We're looking at skills like their cognition, that's how they think and process information. We're looking at memory. We're looking at attention. We are looking at their academic skills. We're looking at their language skills, their visual motor integration skills, as well as there's some social and emotional testing, right? So we are getting a whole picture of this child and a whole host of skills. Once all that testing is done, all the forms and the feedback from parents and teachers are there, then the psychologist kind of pulls it all together. And then the parents are invited back in for a feedback session where they're orally given the results in terms of, this is what the profile looks like. And of course, well, what are we doing with this information? What's the next step? Because that's what it's all about. And it's about determining what the next steps are for the child. Also, there's a full written report that follows. So everything is documented. It's detailed. That's important because this can be shared with schools. This can be shared when they're moving into a new class and there's a new teacher. And as part of the assessment, we also tend to do a school meeting. So we would sit and have discussions with the teacher about the child's profile. And in that meeting, we're typically discussing more of the classroom supports, accommodations, modifications that could be beneficial for that particular student.
Yeah,
So it's a process. Usually it's a few weeks before it's usually all time.
Yeah,
right?
so as much as the parent is dropping off their kid for like a couple hours, there's so much back work to do. You sound like a detective, really just trying to put all the data together, a lot of statistics as well that gets involved here, and interpretation of this. And you've gone on to do, how many years have you been doing this now, Kim?
20.
We're celebrating our 20.
Yeah.
So it is something that comes with experience as well. Would you say
Sure.
specialized kind of thing? Like, what's the difference between going to a regular psychologist versus an educational psychologist?
Yeah, so most people hear the word psychologist, and the first thing that comes to their mind is like therapy or counseling. So that's more of a clinical psychologist role. Now, sometimes through an evaluation, so what I do is evaluations. I do the psychoed evals. Sometimes, if I am picking up on anxiety or stress, and I think a child would benefit from that type of therapy, then that's a recommendation I might make. So it's different types of psychology. One is really evaluating, getting a diagnostic sometimes, or just a profile, and using that information and guiding, whether it's, I think the child may need occupational therapy services. Do I think the child would benefit from psychotherapy services? So sometimes it's just sort of moving in that direction in addition to what can actually happen in the classroom to support the child. So
Okay.
maybe outside services that the child may benefit from, as well as that school meeting is important. So the teachers have an understanding of the child.
So true. And then the teachers receive this maybe 15 pages and upward report, this Bible that needs to be explained. And even the parents and the teachers receive this, and even sometimes referrals to the speech language pathologist, perhaps for
Yes,
something that
absolutely.
uncovered in the language realm of things. So could you help me understand, break down this whole idea of an IQ? Why knowing the IQ is so important?
Okay. So IQ is a part of the evaluation, and it is a very critical point to look at. So IQ is a child's thinking, reasoning, problem-solving abilities. Okay, it's nothing that a child learns in school. It doesn't involve reading and writing. Why is it so important to have a sense of the child's potential? I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding that if a child is struggling academically, it's because they're not smart or their intelligence is below average. In fact, nothing can actually be further from the truth. We have to understand where the child's intellect or potential is. And what we are looking for many times in a psychoed is where's the discrepancy. So if I have an IQ that's average or above average, and my child is underperforming in reading or underperforming in mathematics or writing, that is going to give me an understanding of if this child is meeting criteria for a specific learning disability in any one of these areas. But what the evaluation then tends to uncover is, okay, well, if my IQ is up here and my potential is up here, why? What are the foundational skills that are contributing to my child having a challenge in that area? And then with that information, we know how to intervene. We know what areas we need to remediate and build up.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much for clearing that up. And on that note, too, I'm going to jump to some parents kind of worry about getting their child evaluated because it means it's like a stain. It's a label. How do we address that concern, really?
I get this all the time. It is a real concern and I understand it, but I often try to reframe it to parents. It's not about labeling, it's about understanding. I mean, a diagnosis can help to explain a child's experience, open the door to be able to get what they need. Sometimes I see it bring a huge sense of relief to a child and even to a parent because now they're actually able to understand what's underneath those behaviors. And I think without this understanding, kids are mislabeled. They get mislabeled as lazy or they're just troublemakers. But really, it's the evaluation helps us to understand what's underlying these behaviors. So it really is about not giving a label, but understanding so that you know how to move forward. I've seen it bring a huge sense of relief to children as well. It doesn't mean that I'm not smart or I'm not as good as my peers. It's because of this. Now, and I truly believe that people who understand themselves best are the most successful in life. You have to understand what your strengths and your challenges are, and we all have them. And with that deep awareness and understanding, the children can then sort of advocate for their needs as well as they move up into their academic journey.
Do you share the results with the child, or is that it depends?
It depends on the child's age. I will always have a feedback with my child. I keep it very age appropriate. We focus on the strengths, look what you did so well, and oh my goodness, we realize that these areas are a little trickier for you. So guess what? We have a plan to help you. Of course, with an older child or a young adult, it's approached a little bit more for their developmental level. But I do like to give a child a feedback, and I do encourage parents to really learn as much as they can and have discussions with their kids about it. It's not about feeling ashamed because I'm having a difficulty in this. It's about building awareness and helping the child feel like, okay, there's others like me, there's support. So definitely, I do encourage the children to have some level of understanding.
Good. I think that is really quite beneficial just for their own self-esteem and understanding, as you're saying. Now, you and I both work at the Morris Center, and you conduct the psychoeducational evaluations. I have the pleasure of conducting the pre-testing and post-testing for speech and language and communication abilities. And the best part of this job is working with colleagues like you on a team. Could you explain the difference between a standalone psychoeducational evaluation versus an interdisciplinary with all the disciplines coming together, similar to what we do at the Morris Center?
Yeah, sure. So the psychoed eval typically is done by the psychologist, the school psychologist, and it's really getting a sense of that, the cognition, the academics, their attention. It's going to give us a sense of their learning profile. However, that's just one discipline. At the Morris Center, we have speech pathologists, who can go very deep into language, looking at language from the foundation, meaning their phonological skills, all the way up to metalinguistics, really complicated language. So I always like to explain a psychoed. It's almost like you're kind of scanning the body, and we're looking for areas that may pop out that are a challenge. So if I scan the body and I figure, there's an issue here with language, a speech pathologist that can then go a lot deeper into that to have a deeper understanding of the language profile. Similarly, with the occupational therapists, I may pick up, there seem to be some visual processing challenges here. There's some coordination difficulties that I'm picking up on. Again, that OT is able to go at a much deeper level into those skills. So when this team comes together, there is no stone left unturned. Like we are coordinating it. We have so much more data. And with that, we're really able to understand the why behind, any challenge that a child is experiencing. And of course, it's just going to guide intervention planning that much more in terms of looking at all of those areas.
And strengthening thereafter, strengthening the areas, guiding them through. And it's I have to say, it's the most enjoyable part of my career right now, really working on a team. I kind of nerd out on it because I've learned so much across the disciplines through the occupational therapist, To Sasha Windsor and the other OTs who, when they explain where the challenges were, it was like, maybe that's why he didn't perform so well in my language
Correct.
test. It's not that he can't, it's that perhaps there was a visual component that impacted his language score.
Yeah, we could really cross-reference the data. It's like, hold on, they did well with me, but let's look at your language testing. And when we can really tease out even more detail in terms of where that challenge is. In terms of the recommendations, you're going to get a clear breakdown in terms of what their strengths and the areas of need may be. A diagnosis, if it's eligible, may or may not be. In terms of the recommendations, tend to be broken down into any sort of support that could happen outside of school, whether if we're picking up on some language concerns, whether we think the speech pathologist needs to get involved, or if there's some sensory motor challenges, do we think the OT needs to get involved? Are we recommending that? If it's emotional, are we going to the therapist? So sometimes a recommendation might be that type of follow-up support or remediation. Let's say we're picking up a child who has reading challenges. We're here to guide what are the programs that have the evidence base behind it in terms of this really going to support to develop the reading skills. So we will be guiding in terms of that. So that's part of it. And then part of it, as I said, we're going into the school. We're talking to the teachers in terms of what can happen within that classroom in terms of support. And that could be something as simple as structuring their environment that's going to work a little bit better for them. So let's say a child has regulation challenges. Well, what can you do to help this child who's really struggling to remain focused in the class? What are some practical, simple strategies that can be built into the classroom for the teacher? And then something like home support too. Giving parents some guidance on, certain things will be helpful, whether it's structure, what they can do to help with regulation, what they can do at home to even build some of these skills as well in a fun, easy way.
In just a moment, Kim is going to walk us through some of the signs that may indicate a child could benefit from an assessment. Her insights are incredibly valuable, so stay with us. But before we dive into that, I also wanted to let you know that I've put together a free resource just for you if you've ever wondered whether your child, might need a psychoeducational evaluation, but you're not quite sure what to look out for. This is for you. It's a simple, easy to follow checklist of some of the telltale signs that could suggest that your child is facing challenges with learning or with attention or behavior. And the best part is it's completely free. You can download it right now. Go to my website, speechonthespectrum.info. It's right there waiting for you. I created this checklist to give you clarity and the confidence you need to navigate your child's learning journey, because knowing what to look for is the first step in getting the right help. So go grab it. Let's get back to the interview where Kim shares some of the key signs that might suggest a child might need a psychoeducational evaluation.
So many times it's if a child is struggling academically, whether it's across the board or it's a particular subject. Is a child struggling? Are you seeing self-esteem issues, confidence issues? Is a child avoiding the work? Are you seeing a change in them as the work is amping up? Socially, even emotionally, socially, behaviorally, is this child struggling to keep regulated in the classroom? So it could be academic, social, emotional. Those are kind of the main areas. And sometimes it's just a gut feeling like this child seems to have so much potential. Conversing with this child's language skills seem great, but they're not able to produce what I would expect when it comes to maybe their writing, or their output in the classroom is not matching what they feel for that child is. Trust your instincts and your gut. Something is feeling like this child doesn't seem to be performing to their potential. Many times a child seems to have so much potential, but why aren't they consistent in the classroom? I guess if I had to say one thing, Psychoeducational is a tool for understanding. It's not a tool for judgment. It's not a tool for labeling. It's helping you understand your child. How does your child think? What do they need? And how you can support them in a meaningful way. Just to your point in terms of discussing, your situation with your son, I also have a neurodivergent daughter, and having that deep understanding of her profile helps me respond in the best way, because so many times it can look like these challenging behaviors, but once you have the underlying understanding of where this may be coming from, it changes your perspective, it changes how you respond, and ultimately your relationship and your connection.
What I want to remind you is that an evaluation doesn't mean something is wrong with your child. It simply means we are choosing to learn more. It helps you choose the right interventions, the right support, the right professionals, and it can even ease your own anxiety as a parent because you're no longer just guessing. This is not being done to your child, it's being done for your child. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. What I've heard from so many families is that going through a psychoeducational evaluation can actually strengthen your relationship with your child. It helps you see them for who they are, not just through the lens of their challenges, but through a deeper understanding of how they learn and experience the world. I have never heard a parent say, I wish I'd waited. Often, parents admit, wish I had done this sooner. So if you are listening and you are feeling unsure or overwhelmed, I want to encourage you. Yes, it's emotional. Yes, it takes courage, but it's not the end. It's the beginning of understanding, of support, of solutions. This process is hopeful, not scary. If this has helped you feel a little more seen, make sure to follow, subscribe, and share with another parent who needs it. You're not alone, and your voice matters here on Speech on the Spectrum.